My name is Elizabeth London. I'm a teaching artist with Literature to Life. We are a theater company based in New York City. We believe that a book can change your life. It can open up your mind. It can expand your world. We have a mission to inspire young people to read and to become the authors of their own lives. We perform one-person verbatim adaptations of great pieces of American literature. That means one actor plays all the roles. And that means that every word you hear in the performance comes directly from the book. Today, you will be seeing an adaptation of The Great Gatsby. This is a completely new adaptation. It is still in process, and in fact, the actor and director have only been rehearsing for a few weeks. So surprisingly, you will see a script, but it is completely acted still, have no fear. I'm curious, how many of you have actually read The Great Gatsby? Oh, fantastic. How many of you had to read it in high school? Great. So this is a story, as I think 99.9% of you already know. This is a memory piece. We are in 1922 at the height of the jazz age. But I want you to think about how this story resonates today, how it affects us and reflects us at this very moment as people and as a country. We will be talking about it after, because after the performance, which will be about 25 minutes long, of a piece that will normally, in its full length, run about an hour, you will see a 25-minute excerpt. Afterwards, we will have a discussion, because that is as important to us as the performance itself. So I want you to think about how this piece strikes you, how it reflects today, and I want you to have your questions and your comments that you can share with us after. Thank you so much to the Library of Congress, to the National Book Festival for having us here. I'm so proud to present the Literature to Life production of The Great Gatsby, adapted and directed by Calvin Grudon, and starring Bryce Foley. Thank you for coming.
In my younger and more vulnerable years, my father gave me some advice that I've been turning over in my mind ever since. Whenever you feel like criticizing anyone, just remember that all the people in this world haven't had the advantages that you've had. He didn't say any more, but I understood he meant a great deal more than that. In consequence, I am inclined to reserve all judgments, though I come to the admission that it has a limit. When I came home from the East last autumn, I wanted no more riotous excursions with privileged glimpses into the human heart. I wanted the world to be in uniform and stand at a moral attention forever. Only Gatsby, who represented everything for which I have an unaffected scorn, was exempt from my reaction. If personality is an unbroken series of successful gestures, then there was something gorgeous about him, some heightened sensitivity to the promises of life, as though he were one of those intricate machines that register earthquakes 10,000 miles away. It was an extraordinary gift for hope, a romantic readiness such as I have never found in any other person, and which it is not likely I will ever find again. No, Gatsby turned out all right in the end. It was what preyed on him, what foul dust floated in the wake of his dreams that temporarily closed my interest to the abortive sorrows and short-winded elations of men. It was a matter of chance that I should have rented a house on West Egg, on that slender, riotous island due east of New York. I came back restless from the Great War, and instead of being the warm center of the world, the Middle West seemed like the ragged edge of the universe. So I decided to come east and learn the bond business. My house is an eyesore. It's a weather-beaten cardboard bungalow. But it is a small eyesore, so it has been overlooked. I have a view of the water, of my neighbor's lawn, and the consoling proximity of millionaires, all for $80 a month. Across the Courtesy Bay, the white palaces of fashionable East Egg glitter along the water. And the history of the summer really begins on that evening I drove over there to have dinner with the Tom Buchanans, two old friends whom I scarcely knew at all. Daisy was my second cousin, once removed, and I'd known Tom from college. So, just after the war, I spent 2 days with them in Chicago. Their house was more elaborate than I expected. The lawn started at the beach and ran toward the front door for a quarter of a mile, jumping over sundials and brick walls and burning gardens. A Georgian colonial mansion overlooking the bay. In a bright, rosy-colored space, a breeze blows curtains in at one end and out the other, like pale flags. The only completely stationary thing in the room is a large, enormous couch on which two young women were buoyed up. The younger of the two, extended full length at her end, completely motionless, was a stranger to me. Daisy hinted in a murmur that her surname was Baker and makes an attempt to rise. Do they miss me? The whole town is desolate. All the cars have their left rear wheel painted black as a mourning wreath. And there's a persistent wail all through the North Shore. How gorgeous. Let's go back, Tom, tomorrow. You ought to see the baby. I'd like to. What you doing, Nick? I'm a bond man. Oh, who with? I told him. Never heard of them. This annoyed me. You will. You will if you decide to stay in the East. Oh, I'll stay in the East, don't you worry. I'd be a goddamn fool to live anywhere else. Absolutely. It was the first words Miss Baker had uttered since I came into the room. Evidently, it surprised her as much as it did me. It struck me. I had seen her face before, or a picture of her somewhere before. I'm stiff. I've been lying on that sofa for as long as I can remember. Don't look at me. I've been trying to get you to New York all afternoon. Daisy's playing in the tournament tomorrow, over at Westchester. Oh, you're Jordan Baker. I know now why her face was familiar. It looked out at me from many rotogravure pictures of the sporting life at Asheville and Hot Springs and Palm Beach. Nick, you live in West Egg. I know somebody there. I don't know a single. You must know Gatsby. Gatsby. What Gatsby? Before I could reply that he was my neighbor, dinner was announced. The two young women proceeded before us out onto a rosy-colored porch overlooking the sunset. In 2 weeks, it'll be the longest day in the year. Do you always watch for the longest day in the year and then miss it? I always watch for the longest day in the year and then miss it. We ought to plan something. You make me feel uncivilized, Daisy. Can't you talk about crops or something? Civilization's going to pieces. I've become a real pessimist about these things. Have you read The Rise of the Colored Empires? Why, no. The idea is that if we don't look out, the white race will be utterly submerged. It's all scientific stuff. Tom's getting very profound. The idea is that we're Nordics. I am, and you are, and we've produced all the things that make civilization. Do you see? Almost immediately, the telephone rings inside. The butler comes back and murmurs something into Tom's ear, and he goes inside. I love having you in my house, Nick. You remind me of a rose. An absolute rose. Doesn't he? This was untrue. I am not even faintly like a rose. Suddenly, she throws her napkin on the table and excuses herself back into the house. This Mr. Gatsby you spoke of is my neighbor. Don't talk. I want to hear what happens. Is something happening? You mean you don't know? I thought everybody knew. Why? Tom's got some woman in New York. Got some woman. She might have the decency not to telephone him at dinner time, don't you think? Almost before I had grasped her meaning, Tom and Daisy were back at the table. It couldn't be helped. I looked outdoors for a moment, and it's romantic outdoors. Isn't it, Tom? Very romantic. If it's light enough after dinner, I want to take you down to the telephone rings, startlingly. The subject of stables, in fact, all subjects vanish into air. The last 5 minutes at table, I remember wanting to look everyone squarely in their eyes and yet avoid them altogether. Tom and Miss Baker stroll back into the library while I follow Daisy side by side to the porch in front. We don't know each other very well, Nick, even if we are cousins. You didn't come to my wedding. I wasn't back from the war. That's true. Well, I've had a very bad time, Nick, and I'm pretty cynical about everything. Listen, Nick, let me tell you what I said when the baby was born. Would you like to hear? Very much. Well, she was less than an hour old, and Tom was God knows where. I woke up out of the ether with an utterly abandoned feeling and asked the nurse right away if it was a boy or a girl. She told me it was a girl, and so I turned my head away and wept. All right, I said. I'm glad it's a girl. And I hope she's a fool. That's the best thing a girl can be in this world. A beautiful little fool. Sophisticated. God, I'm sophisticated. The instant her voice broke off, ceasing to compel my attention, my belief, I felt the basic insincerity of what she had said. When I reach my estate at West Egg, I sit for a while on an abandoned grass roller in front of the yard. The silhouette of a moving cat wavers, and turning my head, I see that I'm not alone. 50 feet away, a figure emerges from my neighbor's mansion, standing with his hands in his pockets, regarding the silver pepper of the stars. Something suggested that this was Mr. Gatsby himself, come out to determine what share was his of our local heavens. He stretches out his arm, and far as I was from him, I swear he was trembling. I glanced seaward, distinguishing nothing except a single green light, minute and far away. Might have been at the end of a dock. When I turned my head to look for Gatsby, he had vanished. And I was alone again in the unquiet darkness. About halfway between West Egg and New York, the motor road hastily joins the railroad and runs beside it for a quarter of a mile, away from a certain desolate area of land. This is a valley of ashes, a fantastic farm where ashes grow like wheat into ridges and hills and grotesque gardens, where ashes take the forms of houses and chimneys and rising smoke. Above the gray land, you perceive the eyes of Dr. T.J. Eckelberg, blue and gigantic. Their retinas are 1 yard high. They look out of no face, but instead from a pair of enormous yellow spectacles which pass over a non-existent nose. His eyes, dimmed a little by many paintless days under sun and rain, brood over the solemn dumping ground. I went up to New York with Tom on the train one afternoon. There's always a halt there when we stop by the ash heaps of at least a minute, and it was because of this that I first met Tom Buchanan's mistress. The fact that he had one was insisted upon wherever he was known. We're getting off. I want you to meet my girl. Literally forces me off the car. The only building in sight was a small block of yellow brick, sitting on the edge of the wasteland. One of the 3 shops was a garage. Repairs, George B. Wilson. Cars bought and sold. Wilson was a blonde, spiritless man, anemic, and faintly handsome. I followed Tom inside. Hello, Wilson, old man. How's business? I can't complain. When are you gonna sell me that car? Next week. I've got my man working on it now. Works pretty slow, don't he? No, he doesn't. And if you feel that way about it, maybe I'd better sell it off somewhere else after all. No, I don't mean that. I just meant. Tom glances impatiently around the garage. It is unpreposterous and bare. The only car visible is the dust-covered wreck of a Ford. Then I hear footsteps on the stairs. And in the moment, the thickish figure of a woman blocks out the light from the office door. Smiling, she walks through her husband as if he were a ghost and shakes hands with Tom, looking him flush in his eyes. Get some chairs, why don't you? So somebody can sit down. Oh, sure. He goes toward the little office. I want to see you later. Get on the next train. All right. I'll meet you by the newsstand on a lower level. There is an immediately perceptible vitality about her, as if the nerves of her body were continually smoldering. It's a terrible place, isn't it? Awful. It does her good to get away. Doesn't her husband object? Wilson? He thinks she goes to New York to see her sister. He's so dumb, he doesn't even know he's alive. So, Tom and his girl and I go up to New York together, or not quite together. Miss Wilson sat discreetly in another car. Tom deferred that much to the sensibility of those East Eggers who might be on the train. In New York, she lets 4 taxis drive away before she selects one, and we slide out from the mass of the station into the glowing sunshine. We drive over Central Park toward the West Hundreds. At 158th Street, the cab stops. Hold on. I have to leave you here. No, you don't. Myrtle would be hurt if you don't come up to the apartment. Won't you, Myrtle? Come on. I'll telephone my sister, Catherine. She's said to be beautiful by all the people who ought to know. Well, I like to, but I'm gonna have the McKees come up. And of course, I gotta call up my sister too. The apartment is on the top floor. A small living room, a small dining room, a small bedroom, and a bath. Miss Wilson changes her costume, her personality too. Her sister Catherine sits down beside me on the couch. Do you live on Long Island too? I live at West Egg. Really? I was down there for a party about a month ago at a man named Gatsby's. Do you know him? Well, I live next door to him. Well, they say he's the nephew or cousin of Kaiser Wilhelms. That's why he gets all his money. Neither of them can stand the person they're married to. Can't they? Can't stand them. What I say is, why go on living with them if they can't stand them? If I was them, I'd get a divorce and get married to each other right away. Doesn't she like Wilson either? It's really his wife that's keeping them apart. She's a Catholic, and they don't believe in divorce. Daisy was not a Catholic. And I was a little shocked at the elaborateness of this lie. I have been drunk just twice in my life, and the second time was this afternoon. I wanted to get out, but each time I tried, I became entangled, pulled back, as if with ropes into my chair. I was within and without, simultaneously enchanted and repelled by the inexhaustible variety of life. Sometime toward midnight, Tom and Myrtle stood face to face, discussing whether she had any right to mention Daisy's name. Daisy, Daisy, Daisy. I'll say it whenever I want to. Daisy, Daisy. Tom Buchanan broke her nose with his open hand. Then there were bloody rags, women's voices, a long broken wail of pain, women scolding and consoling as they stumbled here and there among the crowded furniture with articles of aid. Mr. McKee awoke from his daze, started toward the door, turned around, stared at the scene, and continued out the door. Taking my hat from the chandelier, I followed. there was music coming from my neighbor's house through the summer nights. In his blue gardens, men and girls came and went like moths among the whisperings and the champagne and the stars. At high tide in the afternoon, I watch as his guests dive from the tower of his raft, or take the sun on the hot sands of his beach while his two motorboats slit the waters of the Sound, drawing aquaplanes over cataracts of foam. Every Friday, 5 crates of oranges and lemons arrive from a fruiter in New York. Every Monday, these same oranges and lemons leave his back door in a pyramid of popeless halves. And 8 servants, including an extra butler, toil all day with mops and scrubbing brushes and hammers and garden shears, repairing the ravages from the night before. There is a machine in the kitchen which could extract the juice of 200 oranges in half an hour. By 7 o'clock, the orchestra arrives. It's no thin 5-piece affair, but a whole pit full of oboes and trombones and saxophones and viols and cornets and piccolos and low and high drums. The swimmers come in from the beach and dress upstairs. The cars from New York are parked 5 deep, and already the halls and the salons and the verandas are gaudy with primary colors. The bar is in full swing, and floating rounds of cocktails permeate the garden outside until the air is alive with chatter and laughter and casual innuendo and introductions forgotten on the spot. The lights grow brighter as the earth lurches away from the sun. Laughter is easier minute by minute. Already there are wanderers, confident girls who weave here, and suddenly one seizes a cocktail out of the air, dumps it down for courage, and moving her hands like Frisco, dances out onto the canvas platform alone. There is a momentary hush. Then a burst of chatter as the erroneous news goes around that she is Gilda Gray's understudy from The Follies. The party has begun. I believe that on that first night I went to Gatsby's house, I was one of the few guests who had actually been invited. The honor would be entirely Gatsby's if you would attend his little party this night. Signed, Jay Gatsby, in a majestic hand. From East Egg came the Chesterbeckers, and the Hornbeams, and the Willie Voltaires. From West Egg came the Poles, and the Mulreadys, Gulick, the state senator, and Don S. Swartz, and Arthur McCarthy, all connected to the movies in one way or another. A man named Klipsringer was there so often and so long he became known as the Border. I doubt if he had any other home. All these people came to Gatsby's house in the summer, accepted his hospitality, and paid him the subtle tribute of knowing nothing whatever about him. There was dancing now. I had taken 2 finger bowls of champagne, and the scene had changed before my eyes into something significant, elemental, and profound. I was enjoying myself. At a lull in the entertainment. Your face is familiar. Weren't you in the 3rd Division during the war? Why, yes. I was the 9th Machine Gun Battalion. I was in the 7th Infantry until June 1918. I knew I'd seen you somewhere before. We talked for a moment. Evidently, he lives in this vicinity. He tells me he has just bought a hydroplane and is going to try it out in the morning. Want to go with me? Old sport. Just near the shore along the Sound. What time? anytime that suits you best. Having a gay time now? Much better. This is an unusual party for me. I haven't even seen the host. I live over there, and this man Gatsby sent over his chauffeur with an invitation. I'm Gatsby.
How did you enjoy that? We have about 10 minutes, and we would love to have a conversation. So think about your questions and your comments. Bryce will be out in a moment, but I want you to know Literature to Life performs all over the country. We perform in schools from middle school up through university age. We perform in performing arts venues, in community centers, in correctional facilities. So if you need to find out how the story ends, you can book us to come perform the whole thing for you. Please come up with your thoughts and your ideas. I asked you beforehand to think how it resonates for you now. And as we hopefully have brave people who will share some thoughts, I just want you to notice the wealth inequality, the casual racism and misogyny and anti-Semitism, the haves and the have-nots, the have-some and the have-nothing. And my question, if I'm going to ask you a question, is who has the new money today? Who could be our Gatsby today? What do you think? Could be somebody who was in the tech industry suddenly made their money. It could be a hip-hop musician suddenly making their money. How do the people who have everything and have had everything feel about these newbies? So, come talk with us. Who is brave and wants to share some thoughts? Anything you want to say? Yes, oh, please, come to the microphone. Tell us your name, and then ask your question or say your comment.
Is this thing working? Oh, it is great.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Laura.
Hi, Laura.
So something I was thinking of is one of the arguably minusculely more progressive things about the opening of The Great Gatsby is that F. Scott Fitzgerald kind of subtly calls out the casual racism by giving the line to Tom, who we are explicitly instructed not to like because he openly cheats on his wife and he's a major blowhard and he has a temper and this, that. So it's like, you know, if you talk like this, you are emulating this word I can't say in polite company. But what's interesting to me is that Nick considers Tom an old friend from college, and Tom has never made it a secret how he feels about anyone who isn't white. So in continuing to associate with him, Nick is Nick is complicit in all of this. So, I mean, everyone stuck their hands up to indicate they know how the book ends, so this isn't really a spoiler. But at the end of the book, when Nick decides that Tom and everybody like him are obnoxious and hypocritical and will toss aside their morals for the sake of having a good time and social climbing, would we consider that hypocrisy on Nick's part or character growth?
Oh, that's a great question. She's turned it around back here. I don't know if Bryce heard that. I would say, what do you think?
I think it has the potential to be growth. I don't think The Great Gatsby ever got a sequel, did it? But I think it has the potential to be growth, but I think at best, Nick is at the very start of a personal journey that doesn't have an end to it. And I don't know if he fully grasps the amount of progress that he as an individual still has to make, even compared to everyone else. He seems so far thoroughly in the stage of he doesn't realize how negative his own behavior and his own complicitness is yet, because he's still hyper focused on everyone else being worse.
You know, what's interesting is that I'm going to come to Bryce and speak with you. What's interesting is that we know from the beginning that it's a memory piece. So we can ask you even, how when Nick starts, does he feel about all of these people? Because he says in the very beginning, I'm talking about something that happened. What's your thought about that?
Is it still on? Hello? Yeah? Okay. I think there's something interesting that Nick says at the beginning when he says, talking about his father, and he says his father tells him to reserve all judgments. And I think that Nick is fully aware of how vile Tom is, how vile these people are, but in his reservedness, he lets it go. And I think that at the end of the book, or even at the beginning, there's a certain awareness of that, awareness of, if I don't say anything, I haven't said anything, right? If I would have said something when Myrtle, when Tom was cheating with Myrtle, maybe Myrtle will still be alive, right? If I would have said something when maybe Myrtle will still be alive, maybe Gatsby will still be alive, maybe Wilson will still be alive. And I think it can be chalked up to growth, because at the end we know, retroactively he says these are careless people, right? So he understands that he had these feelings all along, he just didn't pull the trigger to say something about it. So maybe growth, maybe growth, because then, he didn't say anything, so it's kind of on him in a way. So I think he has to live with that, Yeah.
That's what I'm saying too. I think he's just starting to realize he should have pulled the trigger, and he's just at the beginning of realizing there were probably a lot of moments in his life where he should have pulled the trigger. And now he has to reckon with, okay, I have to start fixing that.
Right. And at the end, when he comes back and meets Tom later, he refuses to shake his hand. So it may be because of Gatsby, it may be because of his own feelings coming out. Thank you so much. I know we have just a couple minutes. I'd love to hear another question or comment. Thank you.
Hi. First of all, I'd like to compliment the gentleman for the wonderful reading and acting. It was just phenomenal. And I just wanted to make some general comments. I read Great Gatsby a long time ago in India, and for me, it was a wonderful representation of the excesses of a capitalist society, as you alluded to. And this was after World War I. After World War II, there was an expansion of the middle class in this country, so that those excesses got dampened down a bit. But we are still back. We are back with the robber barons and everything. So it's very topical. I hope he come out of this. I don't know. I don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. But once again, thank you.
Thank you so much.
This is just a quick thought, which is now that The Great Gatsby has become public domain and we're beginning to see many new interpretations of it, how, as you're working on this piece, does that affect you? Do the past representations affect you? And how do you come to the piece?
Great question. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I think the most obvious thing, which is something that I think in taking this I had to understand, is like, I'm not white, surprise. And so, coming at this as a black man and understanding caste and class and racism, those things that, 100 years ago were talked about are still talked about now. And I think that I think my job from here on is to understand those layers, right? And to me and me and Kelvin, the director, we talked about how, you know, I mean, you know, I'm gonna reveal myself, but I didn't read The Great Gatsby until auditioning for this, and so I was like, okay, I know it's a, you know, it's a popular, and so when I read it, I think I don't want to assume anything for anybody, but I read it and I was like, oh, this is fun, you know, this is cute, this is fun. But then me and Kelvin were talking and we're like, oh no, it's not. No, it's not. It's not fun. And I think from here on is to, you know, have those moments of, you know, this is what's going on. Like we have these folks up here who we consider, you know, good people because of the amount of wealth that they have. And then we have the people down here who are like, oh, they don't have that much, therefore they're not worthy. And so, you know, we come at it now and going like, okay, well, let's say something about that. Let's say something about all this. Let's say something about the racism that's going on. Say something about the misogyny, the abuse that happens. And I think, you know, and then having those, and then also contrasting that with the fun, you know, the party. Let's have a good time, right? And so I think it's balancing those, and then especially, you know, which is something I haven't figured out yet, but like, why is Nick telling this story? Why is he telling this story? What happens if he doesn't tell the story? What does all this really mean? What that last line, I don't know how I'm gonna say that line yet. I don't know what that line means yet. You know, that's like right, the Cecil Lee back into the Bass. That's a, you know, that's one of those quotes, and so understanding what that means.
Yeah. I'm so sorry. Thank you for that. Our time is up. I want to thank you so much for coming. Please look out for Literature to Life. Lit to Life, the number 2. Thank you so much. Thank you, Bryce, for your beautiful work. Thank you.